Before my 50th birthday, my family kept saying, "Wait, something special is coming soon." My wife always smiled slyly, "Be patient." I returned on my birthday and the house was empty. No note, no call. A few hours later, I saw a photo on social networks. My wife, children, and relatives were having fun at a beach resort. Under the photo, my son wrote, "He won't even notice our absence, LOL." I didn't write anything. Didn't call. Just observed. 3 days later, my WhatsApp was filled with 67 desperate messages. It's 3:23 a.m. and I'm sitting alone in my empty house, scrolling through vacation photos of my family, a vacation I wasn't invited to. On my 50th birthday. 25 years of marriage. 2 kids I thought I raised right. And somehow, this is where it all ended up, forgotten, or worse, deliberately left behind. But let me back up. This whole mess really started about 2 months ago. That's when my wife, Emily, began acting strangely every time my upcoming birthday was mentioned. Not in a bad way, not angry or distant, just secretive. Whispered phone calls. Quickly closing her laptop whenever I walked into the room. Smiling that tight, guilty smile whenever I asked questions. Our daughter Sophie, who just turned 20, started flashing these excited little grins at me and saying, "Dad, you're going to love what's coming for the big 50." Even Lucas, 23 years old and usually too cool to care about anything family-related, dropped hints here and there. "I'm just saying," he'd say with a smirk, "it's gonna be a birthday to remember." And you know what? I believed them. I actually got excited. 50's supposed to be a milestone, right? I wasn't expecting anything extravagant. We're not the type. We're comfortable, not rolling in money. Most of what we save goes towards Sophie's college tuition, and just last month I helped Lucas with a down payment on his first apartment, $4,000 I couldn't exactly spare, but that's what dads do. All the secrecy had me thinking maybe they were throwing me a surprise party. Emily kept brushing off my questions with a wink, saying, "Be patient, Jake." Even Roger, my father-in-law, a man who usually only calls when he needs something fixed, rang me out of the blue to ask if I was taking any time off for my birthday. I told him I had taken the actual day off, this past Tuesday. I should have known better. At 6:20 a.m. on my birthday, my phone rang. It was my boss. Emergency at the Riverside project, a busted water main, equipment issues, the whole thing. Guess who they needed on site immediately? Yeah, always me. I called Emily on the way there just to let her know I'd be late but would definitely be home for dinner. She sounded distracted, almost relieved. "That's fine," she said quickly and hung up before I could say more. The day was a disaster, cold, wet, miserable. Nobody at work even knew it was my birthday. I didn't tell them. I'm not that guy. Honestly, I kept my spirits up by thinking about what must be waiting at home. Maybe balloons. Maybe a cake. Maybe just the people I loved most smiling and celebrating with me. I even stopped by the liquor store on my way back and picked up a bottle of good whiskey. 50 years deserved at least that. At 5:57 p.m. I pulled into our driveway. No extra cars parked out front. No lights on inside. Huh. No biggie, I thought. Maybe they were hiding. Maybe it was part of the surprise. I walked in. The house was dark. Silent. Empty. No decorations. No candles. No smell of dinner cooking. No note on the counter. No, "Be right back" texts. Nothing. I checked my phone. No new messages. I called Emily straight to voicemail. I tried Lucas, no answer. I texted Sophie, silence. By 7:30 p.m. I was sitting at the kitchen table, staring at the unopened bottle of whiskey, wondering if maybe there'd been an accident or an emergency I didn't know about. I even called the local hospitals. Nothing. I called Emily's sister, Rachel, no answer. At 8:14 p.m., still sitting there alone, I cracked open the whiskey and poured myself a glass. That's when I decided to check Instagram. I don't post much myself, mostly just follow Sophie and Lucas to keep up with their lives. And there it was. Posted 3 hours earlier. A photo of my whole family, Emily, Lucas, Sophie, Roger, his wife Susan, and Rachel, all standing on a white sand beach, drinks in hand, all smiles. The caption from Lucas read, "Family vacation mode, activated. He won't even notice we're gone. LOL. He won't even notice." The comments made it worse. Emily replied with a string of laughing emojis. Rachel chimed in with something about workaholic husbands not appreciating the finer things. Sophie didn't comment, but she was there, in the photos, sunglasses on, lounging by the pool, laughing like she didn't have a care in the world. I don't know how long I sat there scrolling. Photo after photo after photo. Group dinners. Jet ski rentals. Selfies by the bar. All time-stamped. All geotagged to a luxury resort I'd never even heard of. 2 days earlier. They had left 2 days earlier. While I was busy working, thinking about how lucky I was to have a family that cared about me, they were already sipping cocktails in paradise. It hit me then like a slow, sinking realization. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was planned. They left me. On purpose. On my 50th birthday. And the worst part? They didn't even think I'd notice. I don't know exactly when the hurt turned into something colder. Maybe it was somewhere between the second and third glass of whiskey. Maybe it was when I realized no one had even bothered to check if I was okay. There were no missed calls. No happy birthday, Dad texts. No wish you were here messages. Just more pictures, more updates from the beach, more evidence that they were living their best lives without me. The rage came slowly. First, it was a tight knot in my stomach. Then it was a steady throb behind my eyes. And then it was just calm. Not the kind of calm where you forgive and forget. The kind where you start thinking very, very clearly. Around 9:30 p.m. I grabbed my laptop and started digging. First stop, our joint bank account. Sure enough, a $4,000 withdrawal last Friday. The exact same amount I'd given Lucas for his apartment down payment. Coincidence? I didn't think so. Next, I scrolled back through older posts, comments, anything that could tell me just how long this little family vacation had been in the works. Turns out Roger had been dropping hints for weeks. Joking in comment threads about counting down the days and getting away from boring old routines. It wasn't spontaneous. It wasn't some last-minute opportunity they couldn't pass up. It was planned. It was organized. It was deliberate. They had orchestrated this entire thing behind my back, and they'd done it right under my nose. And the worst part? They'd made me believe something wonderful was coming. By midnight, I was done feeling sorry for myself. I opened Excel and started documenting everything. 25 years of marriage laid out in cold, emotionless rows and columns. Who paid for what? Who sacrificed what? Who made which compromises? The numbers didn't lie. And they didn't tell a story my family would like. Around 2 a.m. I found something else, something that kicked me straight in the gut. Emily's email was still logged in on our shared laptop. We used to trust each other like that, shared passwords, no secrets. Hidden there was a credit card statement for a card I didn't even know existed. Over $113,000 in debt. Designer clothes. Spa days. Lunches that somehow cost $200 a pop. And most recently, a $6,000 charge from the very resort they were currently lounging at. $6,000. I sat back in my chair, staring at the screen, feeling that pressure behind my eyes again. Not sadness. Not really. Rage. Betrayal. A numb kind of heartbreak. How had I become so invisible to the people I had built my entire life around? I didn't sleep that night. I just sat there, sipping whiskey, scrolling through more vacation photos, and making plans. Plans I hadn't thought I'd ever have to make. Plans I never wanted to make. At 9 a.m. sharp, the second morning after my birthday, I called the bank. I set up a brand new personal account and rerouted my direct deposit paycheck to it. It would take one full pay cycle to kick in, but after that, Emily wouldn't see another dime she didn't earn herself. Then I called my buddy Aaron, who had gone through a brutal divorce last year, and asked for his lawyer's contact info. Finally, I went upstairs to the master bedroom, to my bedroom now, and started moving Emily's things into the guest room. Not in anger. Not to be petty. But to make a statement. A quiet, clear statement. You don't get to pretend nothing happened. Later that afternoon, the first message came through. It was from Sophie. Hey Dad, how's everything? Miss you. Hope you're having a good week. Like nothing was wrong. Like she wasn't currently lying on a beach somewhere while her dad sat home alone on his birthday. I didn't reply. An hour later, Lucas texted. Hey, random, did I leave my laptop charger in my old room? No mention of the birthday. No mention of the fact that they were halfway across the country. I ignored that too. By evening, the messages started getting more anxious. Emily finally texted. Jake? Are you mad about something? Please call. Then another. Kids are worried about you. Then another. Are you home? Are you okay? Still, I said nothing. I simply posted one photo to Instagram. Just me sitting at our kitchen table. A grocery store birthday cake with a single candle. No caption. No tags. Just the timestamp. The effect was immediate. At 9:44 p.m., my WhatsApp started blowing up. Messages from Emily. Messages from Sophie. Messages from Lucas. Even a missed call from Roger. Panic. Full-on, frantic, desperate panic. I counted 47 messages in total by the time I finally turned off my phone at 3:30 a.m. Begging, pleading, demanding answers. But here's the thing. For 25 years, I had always been the guy who picked up the phone, who answered immediately, who fixed things, who made the effort, even when I was tired, even when I was hurting, even when I was the one who should have been getting the apology. But not this time. This time I was done being invisible. This time I wasn't the one who needed to explain himself. By the third day of their vacation, the second day after my birthday, the messages from my family had shifted from concern to downright frantic. At first, it was the polite check-ins. Hey Dad, you good? Please call, we're worried. Then it became more emotional. Jake, this isn't funny anymore. Mom's freaking out. Just text back. And then full-on desperation. Please answer. We're scared something happened to you. I stayed silent. Not out of cruelty. Not out of pettiness. But because silence was the only way to make them feel even a fraction of what I had felt sitting alone at that kitchen table on my birthday. It was around noon when I heard the doorbell ring. I wasn't expecting anyone. When I checked through the window, it was Roger, my father-in-law, standing there, looking as smug as ever. I didn't open the door. Instead, I watched him knock, wait, and then finally leave after a few minutes. Another voicemail followed. This one wasn't concerned. It was angry. He called me childish. Said I was embarrassing the family. Said I needed to man up and forgive Emily already. As if this was just some small misunderstanding. As if 25 years of loyalty and sacrifice could be wiped away with a half-hearted excuse. The real fireworks started when they finally came home. It was late afternoon, day 4 of their vacation, but clearly they had cut it short. I heard the Uber pull into the driveway. Car doors slamming. Luggage wheels dragging on the concrete. Then silence. I could imagine the scene. Them standing on the porch, trying their keys in the locks, realizing they didn't work anymore. Finally, the doorbell rang. I didn't rush to answer it. I took my time, finished my coffee, stood up slowly, walked to the door, and opened it just wide enough to block half the frame with my body. And there they were. Emily holding a gift bag that clearly had been bought last minute at the airport gift shop. Lucas looking everywhere but at me. Sophie on the verge of tears. Roger and Susan lingering behind them, arms crossed, faces tight with disapproval. No one spoke for a second. Then Emily jumped in, voice bright and fake. Jake, we were so worried about you. We tried calling. We thought something terrible had happened. I said nothing. She pressed on, talking faster. We only left because it was meant to be a surprise. We were going to come back and celebrate with you properly. It just got complicated. Still, I said nothing. I simply pulled out my phone and held up the Instagram photo, Lucas's post with the caption. He won't even notice we're gone. LOL. The silence that followed was louder than any shouting match could have been. Lucas stared at the ground. Sophie burst into tears. Emily reached out as if to grab my phone, but I stepped back. And then Roger stepped forward, puffed up like he always did when he thought he could bully his way through a situation. This is ridiculous, he barked. You're blowing everything out of proportion. Let's go inside and talk like adults. I looked him dead in the eye. You're not welcome in my house, Roger, I said quietly. You can drop their luggage and leave. The shock on his face was almost satisfying. No one had ever told Roger no before. Certainly not me. He sputtered, tried to argue, but I simply closed the door halfway in his face. Eventually, he and Susan muttered something under their breath, dropped the suitcases, and stomped off down the driveway. Only then did I let Emily, Lucas, and Sophie inside. The house felt different with them in it. Smaller. Tighter. Less like home and more like a battleground. Emily noticed immediately that her things were missing from the master bedroom. Where's my stuff? She demanded. In the guest room, I said. Where you'll be staying for now? Her mouth opened and closed like she was about to argue, but I didn't give her the chance. I walked to the kitchen, pulled out the folder I had prepared, and laid it on the table. Screenshots. Bank statements. Social media posts. Expense breakdowns. A full accounting of everything they thought I was too blind or too tired to notice. I pointed to it and said, I have just one question. They waited. When I said, did I become so worthless to this family? Emily tried first. She insisted that I was blowing things out of proportion. That the trip had been meant as a way to give me time to relax. That it was supposed to be a gift. I showed her the text thread between her and Rachel, laughing about how I wouldn't even notice they were gone. Her face went pale. Lucas mumbled something about how his Instagram caption was just a joke. That everyone exaggerates online. I showed him a collection of his comments over the past year, little digs about me being boring, being absent, being a typical out-of-touch dad. His excuses dried up quickly. Sophie just cried. Through the tears, she finally admitted that originally, the trip had been meant to include me. But Roger convinced Emily that it would be more fun without my negative energy. That hit harder than anything else. They had created a narrative where I was the bad guy, the boring provider, the absent father, to justify cutting me out. And the worst part? I had given them the material to work with. I had worked too much. I had missed events. I had been tired on weekends. But I had also paid the bills, saved for college, fixed the leaky roof, kept the cars running, provided every opportunity they took for granted. I showed up. Maybe not perfectly, maybe not in the ways they wanted, but I showed up. And now, standing there, watching them squirm under the weight of their own betrayal, I realized something. I wasn't invisible because I had failed them. I was invisible because they had chosen not to see me. By 7 p.m., it was clear we weren't going to fix anything that night. I laid down the terms. I would continue paying the mortgage and utilities for 3 months. I would pay Sophie's college tuition directly, not through Emily. Everything else, groceries, bills, spending money, was now on them. After 3 months, we would reassess. If they wanted to rebuild this family, it would be on my terms. And if not, we'd be filing for divorce. Lucas stormed out, muttering about how unfair I was. Sophie ran upstairs, sobbing. Emily sat there at the kitchen table, staring at the pile of evidence, looking like a woman who had just realized the fairy tale was over. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel guilty. I felt free. The next morning, I woke up at 4:17 a.m. to the sound of someone crying. It took me a minute to realize it wasn't outside, it was inside the house. Emily. I sat up in bed, listening to the muffled sobs coming from the guest room down the hall. And for the first time in probably 2 decades, I felt nothing. Not guilt, not anger, not satisfaction. Just nothing. She was hurting, sure. But the man who would have jumped up to comfort her no matter what? He wasn't here anymore. He had finally stopped existing. The following 2 weeks were strange. Tense breakfasts, awkward dinners, polite conversations about bills and schedules, nothing more. There were no real apologies. No deep conversations. No tearful confessions. Just damage control. Just trying to pretend we could still operate like a normal family when every foundation had already cracked beyond repair. The morning after they got back, I half expected Emily to break down, to beg for forgiveness. Instead, she made coffee like it was any normal Wednesday morning. She actually asked, like it was casual small talk, "Have you gotten this out of your system yet?" Like my hurt was just a childish tantrum that needed to blow over. I didn't answer. I just slid my phone across the counter, open to the screenshots I had compiled. Her laughter at my expense. The comments between her and Rachel. The hidden vacation posts. The financial betrayals. She scrolled through them silently, her face slowly draining of color. And then the final, pathetic move, she said. My account must have been hacked. That's not me. At 7:43 a.m., standing there with my coffee in one hand and 25 years of evidence in the other, I realized it was over. Not officially. Not on paper. But spiritually. Emotionally. Done. Later that day, Lucas came over, reeking of hangover and defensiveness. He started ranting about how I was being toxic. How it was just social media. How no one takes that stuff seriously. I didn't raise my voice. Didn't argue. I simply pulled up my own Instagram account and showed him the comments from his friends, the ones where they joked about how clueless I was, how easy it was to lie to me, how boomer dads never notice anything. I asked him one simple question. What kind of man laughs at the person who pays for his life? He didn't have an answer. He just muttered something about me not understanding how the internet works and left. I haven't heard from him since. Sophie was different. She cried, apologized, real tears this time. She said she had wanted to call me on my birthday, but that Rachel and Roger had convinced her it would ruin the surprise. She admitted she'd felt guilty the entire trip. I wanted to believe her. Part of me did. But another part remembered the photos, her smiling with a drink in hand, laughing on the beach. She hadn't looked miserable then. Still, I told her what I needed to tell her. I'll always be your dad. You don't have to choose sides. But from now on, you choose your own actions. I set up a separate account to pay her tuition directly. No more letting money get lost in a black hole of family spending. If she needed support, she could come to me. Directly. Adult to adult. Around day 10, Roger showed up uninvited. Walked right into my house without knocking because Emily had given him the old door code. He started in immediately shouting about how I was destroying the family over a stupid misunderstanding. I didn't shout back. I didn't even raise my voice. I simply asked him, "How much did you spend taking my family on vacation without me?" He puffed up, blustered about how it wasn't about money. I asked again calmly. Finally, he snapped, $8,600. Happy now? I nodded. Then I told him how much I had in Sophie's college fund. $25,000. Money scraped together $500 at a time. Money that could have gone to vacations or home repairs or a better car. I asked him how much he had contributed to her education. He didn't answer. Just stood there, red-faced and sputtering. I gave him 30 seconds to get off my property before I called the cops. He left at the 20-second mark. After that, the battle lines were clear. Emily moved in temporarily with Rachel. Lucas stopped answering my texts. Sophie bounced between their place and mine. The family fractured and no amount of fake smiles or Facebook posts could pretend otherwise. Emily's relatives posted vague statuses about standing strong during hard times. Mutual friends chose sides. I didn't engage. The people who knew me really knew me saw through the lies. The rest? Not my problem. 2 weeks after their return, something surprising happened. Lucas showed up at my door, looking rough, unshaven, exhausted. He wasn't there to apologize exactly. He was there because reality had finally hit. His new apartment was bleeding him dry. Utilities, groceries, car insurance, internet, the endless hidden costs he never noticed when he lived under my roof. He'd blown through his savings. The beach vacation had cost him more than he realized. He sat at my kitchen table, looking defeated, and for a moment I almost kicked him back out. Almost, but instead I made him breakfast. Taught him how to make a basic budget spreadsheet. Showed him, line by line, what real life actually costs. By lunchtime, he wasn't defensive anymore. Just humbled. Before he left, he deleted all his social media apps right there at the table. Said he needed a break from the noise. Asked if he could come over on Sundays for adulting lessons. I said yes. Because while forgiveness is complicated, being a father is simple. As for Emily, she shifted into full PR mode. Posted long, vague Facebook posts about healing and unexpected life changes. Told anyone who would listen that I was having a midlife crisis. That I was financially abusive by cutting her off. I didn't counter any of it. I didn't need to. The truth stands on its own without my help. It's been a month now. I've started swimming at the community center 3 mornings a week. Grabbed drinks with coworkers for the first time in years. Even joined a weekend hiking group. Small things. Simple things. But they're mine. Lucas still comes by every Sunday. We cook dinner, balance his budget, talk like 2 adults finally seeing each other clearly. Sophie checks in often, balancing her loyalties as best she can. Emily still texts every day, some nostalgic, some practical. I answer only the practical ones. Last week, I got served divorce papers. Nothing ugly. Reasonable terms, actually. It's almost like she realized she'd lost her leverage. Maybe she finally understands that the man she thought would always pick up the phone, always pay the bills, always forgive without question. He's gone. And the man who replaced him? He's not invisible anymore. Not to his family. Not to his friends. And most importantly, not to himself.